Hello, hello, and welcome to the Journal Star Sportswriter podcast. I'm your host, Adam Duvall, joined always by Stan Morris, small school beat writer, Dave Reynolds, large school beat writer. We're going to recap week one and then look ahead to week two. Well, Stan, let's start with you. Route 9 rivalry, Tremont 31, DMAX 7. What'd you see out there that...
Went to the Turks this time. Tremont looked really good on both sides of the ball. They dominate up front, and like this, most coaches will say, if you win the battle up front, you got a great chance of winning that game, and that's what they did. They really got the battle up front, and Caden Buster's a hard guy to bring down, and so he got 150 yards, 3 touchdowns. They were really able to stop him. He was pulling 2 or 3 guys along with him for a lot of those carries and touchdowns. So they looked impressive. They got to work on the kicking game a little bit. They missed 4 extra points. So that's one emphasis for them because they got a big game coming up this weekend. But a good start for them.
Dave, how about you? You're over in Metamora.
Yeah, I was impressed with the Redbirds. They lost a lot, including quarterback Thomas Hall. There were a few question marks there, but Pat Ryan, the veteran coach that he is, he had them ready to go. I mean, they just play so fundamentally sound. Their line play is so good, and new quarterback Vinny Corsia Grossa showed really well. 137 passing yards all in the first half when they built a big lead, and he looked poised out there. It looked like he'd been doing it a long time, and they showed well defensively. It was a great crowd, great night. So fun night to be a Metamora Redbird for sure.
Good week one for the Birds. Yep. Dave, let's stick with you. In week one, was there a game or two that kind of stood out to you? I mean, obviously Peoria High put up 96.
Yeah, it's hard not to look past that one and say, oh my gosh, what happened there? 96-14, the Lions won at Champaign Centennial. It was 48-0 at the end of the first quarter. They did it by passing early on. Gabe Hernandez threw 5 touchdown passes in the first 15 minutes of the game. But a lot of those are set up on turnovers. They weren't length of the field drives, but the Peoria High defense, Tim Thornton kind of credited the defense for setting the tone and causing a lot of those turnovers. Centennial had 7 turnovers in the game, 5 fumbles. So that was a big part of, we all hear the term, a good defense sets up a good offense, and that's what happened there because they're in good field position on most of those situations. So they built a big early lead. We weren't there, obviously, but Coach Thornton said that by the second quarter he'd had several starters out. By the third quarter, his second team was being replaced by the third team, and they still piled the points up. And so it was an impressive night for the Lions. On the flip side, the game I was a little bit surprised at was Washington's 24-0 loss at Sycamore. Excuse me. Senior moment there. But I thought that Sycamore would win the game. They are ranked 6th and probably are going to go up even further in Class 4A. But it was an interesting game for Washington. I looked up, when was the last time they were shut out in a non-conference game? I had to go all the way back to 2003. Non-conference shutout of the Panthers. And, new quarterback, Brady Klein, new players at a lot of positions for them, and only 110 total offensive yards, and that's very uncharacteristic of Washington teams. So that one surprised me a little bit in terms of the breadth of the margin. And I want to give kudos to Limestone as well. 14-0 win at Lincoln. They obviously showed their defense is strong, and they could be It could be a factor in the Mid-Illini race this year. Who knows?
Right. Stan, before we get to you, I actually was at 3 different games. I stopped by Canton and Farmington and Elmwood. Elmwood, they were losing heading into the fourth quarter to Mid-County, 24-22. Walked into the arena, the field there, and Logan Dameron's 3-yard touchdown, 6 seconds into the fourth quarter, put them up for good. They got 2 big turnovers there in the fourth quarter. So Elmwood won that 36-24. Started my night in Canton. Little Giants went down right away and scored. Callie Stein with a 6-yard touchdown. And an interesting note about that game, Canton scored 47 points. So they didn't hit 47 total points until week 3 last year. So look for that Little Giant offense to put up some points. And Farmington beat Stark County 28-7. Blake Springer moved to running back, had a huge night. He had 124 total yards and two receiving and 1 rushing touchdown. So those 3 games were, for the most part, pretty good. Stan, on the small, week 1, was there another 1 or 2 games that kind of stood out to you?
Well, certainly another one is IVC going up to Tolono Unity. They beat them last year, but that was at their place. But going to Tolono Unity, and a lot of, they put in a new turf field, a lot of hype going into, and Tolono is one of those, normally a powerhouse. They had kind of a little bit of a down year last year, but to go there and get a win, 21-20. They stopped a 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter to hold on and get that win. Alex Merlot and Cam Waller are going to be a nice combination there. Waller had 97 yards receiving, and Merlot had about 161 yards passing there. But that's a nice win for them, setting up going into a really big, huge, season opener for them at home. So this coming weekend, so that was good, and of course in Eureka, winning 28-0 at Leroy wasn't a surprise that they beat them, but it was a surprise a little bit how they did that. They did it through the air, and Eureka's known more as a running team, so to pull the shutout there, and with Matt Martin going for over 257 yards passing is. It's been a while since Eureka's had that many passing yards in a game, so those kind of stood out. And Princeville getting a shutout, they looked good again. With a young team, not a lot of starters coming back from a really strong team the last few years, and so to go 41-0 there, they look strong too.
To run down some other of those scores, Normal Community beat Richwoods 30-7. Cambridge took down the Heights 50-25. Normal West 36, Notre Dame 6. Piatone 35, Manual 7. Dunlap beat Galesburg 21-7. Streeter got a late touchdown to beat East Peoria 21-14. Rochelle beat Pekin 35-21. Morton over LP 14-7. So next we're going to move on to one thing. So a stat, a quote, a note, something from week 1 that stood out to either one of you. Dave, you want to start?
Well, Peoria High had 13 touchdowns in the game. Mm-hmm. I looked that up. It's tied for 10th all-time on the Illinois all-time list for touchdowns in a game. And of those, there's 11 total of what I'm talking about in terms of games. 3 of those were by Peoria High in the last 4 years.
No kidding.
So we obviously have been aware of their prolific offense and their no-huddle offense, which can score points in a hurry. They have a tremendous stable of athletes. Didn't seem to have much of a drop-off when they went 2 and 3 deep. That was one thing that Tim Thornton mentioned today, that he was really pleased with their depth and how those kids, as they shuttled them in and out, just kept coming and kept playing aggressively. So I think those 13 touchdowns is something that definitely stands out.
That's one thing that I don't think some critics, especially on social media, when they see 96 points, they don't understand that the first string, they're going to put up a lot of points, but the depth that Peoria High has with their second and third string, I mean, these guys work hard, in two-a-days and Hell Week and practices, and they want to get in and get theirs, and you can't fault those kids for wanting to play hard. And 96 points is 96 points because they did what they had to do and they executed.
Yeah, and Tim mentioned that their top rusher was their fifth string running back, and their top passer, or not passer, but quarterback rusher was I think the backup quarterback. So the starters, it doesn't sound like we're in there long periods of time. Mostly by the second quarter. I mean, you're up 48-0 after a quarter, so you're going to give everybody a look. But that makes them pretty fresh and eager, I would think, all of them going forward.
Right. Stan, how about you? What's one thing you took away from week one?
I don't know, I'm going to spoil it a little bit with talking Eureka with the 257 yards passing for them, and three of those 4 touchdowns going to Aiden Sears. I talked to Aiden last night. Going to do a little feature on him a little later in the week, and just because Eureka has been known as a run first, run oriented team, and they have that mentality. But Leroy was just daring them to pass, and so now they have a passing game, and so they did that and took advantage of that. And Aiden's got some height and got some speed, and so that's one thing that stood out of maybe the norm, so to speak. And I guess if I can throw in another number,
do it.
79 is a pretty impressive number. That's how many rushes that Elmwood Brimfield had Friday night, and that's not out of the ordinary for Elmwood Brimfield. They were, like you mentioned, they were the third string quarterback. They lost their first string quarterback to just right a few days before the season started. Their second string quarterback was injured before that. So and if there's any program that third string quarterback can kind of ease his way in to it, it's Elmwood Brimfield, where he's just going to be handing that ball off and getting more comfortable, as the season goes along. And so, that's what they do. 79 rushes for over 300 yards.
About 20 a quarter.
Yeah.
My one thing was also from Elmwood Brimfield. So they had a double-digit first half deficit. And Todd Hollis, I talked to him after the game, he gave me this quote: "You keep chopping at the tree and chopping at the tree, and hopefully eventually it falls down." And sure enough, that's what happened. They grinded it out. They used their defense, their ground game, obviously, and came away with that 36-24 victory.
That's what they do. They kind of wear the opponents down by doing that over and over and over again, and finally by the fourth quarter, yeah.
Right. All right, so let's look ahead to week 2. Dave, what do you consider your game of the week?
Well, I can't move past Peoria High. They're home at the stadium against Peoria Notre Dame. Going into the season, I would say these were the 2 best teams in the city. Notre Dame had a 30-point loss to Normal West in the opener at home and did not play well. They fumbled 4 times. They were intercepted. Set up at least a couple of those touchdowns. And the other thing I just found out this morning was quarterback Ben Corey was injured during that game, and he was being looked at today to determine whether he'll be able to play going forward. So that's a tough blow because he's a really good defensive player for them as well. And they've got a couple of juniors that they're going to use at quarterback this Friday against Peoria High. It's a tough opponent to have to break in against when you're a young quarterback. So, but it'll be an interesting game. a little bit of a contrast in styles. Peoria High, obviously, the no huddle, speed up, let's go. Notre Dame, a little more deliberate, but with that wing T offense, it's something that a lot of teams don't see much. So I think Peoria High will prevail, probably pretty convincingly. But it should be. I don't think it'll be anything like we saw last week.
Okay. Other large school games. Thursday is Manual and Richwoods. They're at the stadium. Belleville West is at Washington. Macomb at Canton. Mount Zion at Dunlap. East Moline United Township at East Peoria. LaSalle Peru at Limestone. Metamora at Rock Island. Pekin at Sterling. And Streeter at Morton. Stan, how about you? Week 2, small schools. Huge slate of really good games. What do you consider your game of the week?
Yeah, there really is. For week 2, I mean, we're talking just obviously second week of the season. There's some huge games this week. The Heart of Illinois Conference could be decided in week 2, both on a large school side and a small school side. On the large school side, you got Eureka going to Gibson City and Melvin Sibley, 2-time defending state champions. The team that lost a lot from those state championship teams, but still Mike Allen does a great job, and they just kind of keep rolling, and I expect them to be really strong. That's a big test for Eureka, but it's one they've been kind of pointing to. Your GCMS had an incredible defense last year, barely gave up any points in the regular season all year, so it, again, is a huge challenge for Eureka to go to their place. But they've been pointing to that all through the summer. They've been looking towards that game and other big games that are in the HOI large conference. But that's certainly one big one. But then on the other side of the HOI, on the small side, Tremont hosts Fisher, and Fisher is a team that was 8-3 last year. Had a lot of guys back from that who won a playoff game for the first time last year, so they're looking strong. They beat a Houston area team 52-0 in week 1. So that if you would consider Tremont and Fisher probably the top 2 teams on the small side. So again, it's going to be decided. Fisher has a lot of speed. They like to take advantage of that speed, and Tremont's going to have to try to slow them down and kind of use that methodical, the Caden Buster, just grinding out yards and those kind of things, and maybe keep the ball out of Fisher's hands. So those are 2 big games. I mean, Monticello at IVC is another big game. Monticello's a defending state champion 3A, and IVC's hosting them. So that's a big game for kind of see where IVC is at this point. They have a senior group that's been pointing towards this season too, with a lot of returning starters, 3-year starters, and to be able to hang with, maybe even beat a Monticello team that is, again, a traditional power, that'd be huge. But again, there's more down the line, but I don't know if you want to go on those. But
yeah, the rest of those small school games: El Paso Gridley at DMAC, Abington Avon at Princeville, Farmington at Anawan Weathersfield.
That should be a good one.
Elmwood Brimfield at Aledo Mercer County, and Heights Quest at Mid County. I mean, that's just reading off those. That's just a great slate of games.
Yeah, Abington and Princeville. Princeville's had that great defense, and they're going to be tested with a quarterback from Abington Avon, who's a really strong quarterback. So we'll see what happens there. And obviously, Anawan Weathersfield has Colton Quagliano, who's a really talented junior quarterback for AW, and they've got a lot of weapons. And it's kind of flip-sided because now AW is the veteran team and Farmington's kind of a young team. So we'll see if they can keep that winning streak in the regular season alive there.
Right. All right, so last week we introduced Dave to fantasy football. He already mentioned Ben Corey. He got an injury. That was Dave's quarterback. So I'm going to run through some numbers. Stan was the winner.
Really?
67.48 points.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Matt Martin from Eureka got him 27.98 points. Matt had 257 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, 17 yards rushing. Nate Wynn had 91 rushing yards and a touchdown, so that's good for 15.1 points. Blake Springer had 114 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns, 10 receiving yards, and a touchdown. So that was good for 24.4 points. I was the runner-up. I had 67.08, so Stan beat me by 0.4. I don't have Kavion Mack's yards, but he did score a touchdown. Caden Buster gave me 33.1 points. He had 151 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Matt Martin, 27.98 points. Mm-hmm. As for Dave, came up strong.
You don't need to tell us.
With 32 points. Zach Poston, he had a huge week for you. He had 23.9 points. He had 111 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns and 8 yards. Ben Corey had 21 rushing yards, and Kavion Mack had that receiving touchdown. So, Stan, the leader, let's start with you. Who are your 3 fantasy guys this week?
You're going all 3? Or just
you know what?
one?
Let's start with the quarterback.
Okay. Quarterback, I'm going to kind of go off. I'm going to actually go with Peyton Wilson from Peoria Heights. Kid put up 278 yards passing, I believe, in week 1.
Wow.
A couple touchdown passes. They're going to play Mid-County, so we'll see if he can keep that up.
Okay. Dave, who's your QB1?
I need to catch up. I'm going with Matt Martin.
Okay. All right. Matt Martin from Eureka. Dave, hopefully this is not the JS jinx for me. I'm going with Vinny Q from Metamora. Hoping a big game from him up in Rock Island. So, Dave, let's go back to you. Who's going to be your running back this week?
I'm going to go with the Buster kid.
Okay.
I've been saving him for this week.
Saved him all the way to week 2. Huh?
Caden Buster from Tremont. Stan, how about you? Who's your running back?
I'm going with Carter Johnson, Princeville.
Carter Johnson.
Had about 115 yards or so in week 1. So.
Okay. I'm going with Blake Springer from Farmington. Liked what I saw from him last week. Hoping more of the same in week 2. Stan, let's go back to you. Who's your wide receiver?
I'm going to go Cam Wallard, IVC. 93 yards. I'm not sure how many touchdowns he had.
97 yards.
97 yards and 3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns,
yeah.
Dave, how about you?
I'm going to stick with Peoria High and go with Chris Williams.
Chris Williams, okay.
He had 2 touchdowns last week, by the way, before he was taken out. So
okay. Well, Stan, I'm following suit. Cam's been bothering me. Hey, when are you going to pick me in fantasy? When are you going to pick me in fantasy? Well, Cam, I'm picking you, so no pressure. You're going against Monticello, the reigning state champs.
Have a big game, Cam.
Have a day, all right? Have a day, Cam. All right, our final segment, picks. Last week, all 3 of us went 3-0, all picking Metamora, Tremont, and Normal West to win. This week, the game of the week for the large schools, Notre Dame at Peoria High. Dave, let's start with you.
Do you need a score too?
Sure, give me a score.
Yeah, at Peoria High, I wrote down here 62-14.
62-14. Stan?
You're slowing their offense down a little bit, huh? Only 62?
Well, the Irish might slow them down a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't have the no-huddle offense like Centennial did.
Yeah. I've got to go Peoria High again, too. And, they're going to score points, obviously. I'll give them in the 50s. So we'll say 58 to 28.
58-28. Okay. I'm going to go Peoria High, and I'm just going to go RC on my paper, running clock. Okay? I'm not going to give you a score. Eureka at Gibson City, Melvin Sibley. Last year, GCMS won 41-12. It was the only regular season loss for Eureka. The state ranks will be out tomorrow, but currently it's the number 1 team in 2A versus the number 3 team in 3A. So, Dave, your small school expertise, I need it right now.
I'm going to go with the home team, GCMS.
Okay.
Had to get the acronym right there.
Right.
24-14.
24-14. 24-14. Okay, Stan, how about you?
Man, this is a toughie. I'm going to bounce back and forth probably between now and when we make our official picks on
okay.
Friday. But I picked Eureka to win this game in the preseason. I'm going to go ahead and pick them here to pull the upset there, and it's going to be, we're going to say 21-14. I don't know if there's that many points going to be scored. I think defense is going to be at a premium in that one.
I'm sticking with the Hornets. I'm going to say it's going to be decided by a field goal, 10-7. That's
gold. They've got the kicker.
There we go, 10-7. That's what I'm going with. All right, our bonus game of the week: Abington Avon at Princeville. Both are 1-0. Both scored 40-plus points last week. Stan, how about you? What do you say?
I'm going to go Princeville. I think that certainly the key in that game is to see if Princeville's DBs can hold down Abington's quarterback, Lucas Tinkham. But I think they can get the job done well enough to do that, and I'll say that'll be. Let's say 35-21.
35-21. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I'll go with Princeville as well. Let's say 31-14.
31-14. Carter Johnson, he's going to have a couple touchdowns. Stan's going to get some fantasy points. Princeville's going to win this game 40-27. So those are our picks for the week. In closing, be sure to follow us on Twitter. Use the hashtag PGS Preps to join the conversation. Look for features from Dave, from Stan this week. Look for our package on Sundays. Like I said, the state ranks will be out tomorrow, so look for those online. For Dave Reynolds, Stan Morris, I'm Adam Duvall. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.